All right, so it has been, how long? How long has it been since Charles has gone live? I don't know, it's been a while, but it's been a lot of 2 years. So I'll just give you a little context is that I was in Florida in 2020 when COVID was announced, and I stayed down there for a couple of months. This is March 2020. And I was running on a lot of cylinders. At least I thought so, okay? And the reason I'm saying I'm back is because it has taken me 2 years to get to where I am. And as Jordan Peterson has talked about, as anyone that, Carl Jung, the hero's journey, whatever you want to call it, you go into the belly of the beast, which is in the Bible, you go into the darkest part of the forest, and you literally have to get stripped down to the bare minimum before you can even come back. And it's been quite some time, to say the least, that I actually went through what I went through for the last 2 years. So it was, to say the least, very interesting. And I stayed in Florida in 2020. I came back through March, June, and July. I essentially did not work. I then fast forward to 2021. I started moving all of my races to 2021. Then 2021 happened. I raced in St. George, 70.3 Ironman. 70.3 is half an Ironman. 70.3 is the amount of miles it is. And it was a good experience. I stopped drinking at that time. Before that, I was not in a good place, to say the least. There's a lot of vices. I'm going to be digging into that in the coming videos. But I retained my coach, my triathlon coach. I also had my regular coach that I hired at the end of 2021, which is my business coach. And both of them are kind of the A-team. And only until about a couple of weeks ago was I really able to come out of the forest, in the deepest part of the forest. Really only two people really know how bad it went. Okay, for myself. That's my triathlon coach, and that's the girl I was dating. And they're the only ones for the last 2 years that really knew how bad it was. I put on the facade, I put on the mask, whatever you want to call it, where there were times that I would come out of it and it felt good. You would eat healthy, you would exercise, you'd do some work and things like that. And last year was 2021. Was actually one of my best years in business, and I did zero prospecting. That's completely unlike me, okay? What is like me is to wake up very early, to get on my bike, run or swim, to get to the office at 7:30, 7:45, 8 o'clock max, and then right then and there, I'm already prospecting for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's weird when you go from a 2019 where I was on all cylinders. And then you go into 2020, and what's funny is that for the last 2 years, almost to the day, because I went down to Florida recently, last week, visited my mom, and it's weird is that I looked around for the last 2 years, and a lot went through my mind, and I noticed that there was kind of a lack of direction on where people should go. Okay, and I was one of them. I was a flock, and I always just go against the flock. I've never gone really with the flock, even in high school, college, anything else, even that's why I started my own company. And what I noticed is that when you go with the flock, you literally are afraid of a lot of things, or you just go down the wrong path. And that's essentially where I went. I went down the wrong path. It was not good. As I said, I'm going to talk about it, but recently, I hired this coach. Last year, we started teaching, or he started coaching me in business, and there's accountability. And what I noticed is that the number one thing missing in people's lives is accountability. If you live by yourself, it's the hardest because you don't have a spouse, you don't have kids, you don't have, especially with work from home. You could work from home. You don't even have to be anywhere. So for me is that I noticed that accountability is my number one thing. And for the last, I returned from Florida, what's today, Thursday? Actually, I returned from Florida last week. I drank last Thursday, and I think I drank last Friday. And and I disclosed to a friend of mine on Monday or Tuesday how bad it actually was. And he said something very interesting, and my coach actually on Wednesday reiterated it, and he goes, "You think you're unique? You know, you think you're really unique in what you went through, is that you had problems and no one else has problems." And it's funny, when you're going through it, it wasn't like, people ask me, you know, the 3 people that really knew, they're like, "Were you depressed?" And it's funny, it's weird. I really wasn't. I wasn't worried or anything else. It was really just more of an action of doing what was easy, doing what was comfortable, doing what I knew was familiar. And it sucks. It really does, because there's no growth. And when there's no growth, you're screwed. Seriously, you're really screwed. And the reason being is that I went to a Tony Robbins event at the end of last year, and it was a good wake-up call, but it wasn't enough of a wake-up call. I'm now in a good place now, because I'm so dialed in, it's crazy. Like, I needed to go through the last 2 years to really find out who I was. And as my coach on Wednesday said, he goes, "It's going to be a epic climb." Epic. Because I look around and there's really no good leaders. There's like leaders in spaces. So you have maybe Grant on real estate investing. You got David Goggins on motivation. His book is great though, but he's really a motivation guy. But there's really no holistically business person who's actually into personal development, who's actually exercising, who's racing and things like that. And I see that need and that void, because there's a lot of people, and this was quoted probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 years ago. I forgot who actually authored it, but he said that athletes are going to become businessmen and businessmen are going to become athletes. So in other words, the two, to be competitive, are going to have to be combined. You can't just be a businessman and be completely overweight and just don't care about your health. And then you can't be an athlete and not care about the business, because you're going to end up like Mike Tyson or Curt Schilling, who had $500 million and $100 million, and they lost it. It's gone. So essentially, what I noticed is that when I look on Instagram, and I don't like doing it, to be honest, I go on, and then I start to scroll and I stop, because I noticed that was I don't like the word trigger, because it's very sophomoric. I was actually thinking about that today. You know, people are like, I'm triggered. You know, this one girl was like, if you're triggered by this post, it's like, you got to get a little bit tougher. You know, let's talk to our ancestors who sloth through 6 months of a winter, you know, 2 weeks without food, you know, barely surviving, and you're triggered by a post. Let's be honest. Let's take it easy there. All right. Let's toughen up a little bit. You know, your ancestors would be a little ashamed if you're triggered by a post. And it's not the post, by the way, it's you. Okay? And I was thinking about it is because we talk about agency. Something happens. Someone cuts you off in the highway, someone says something online, they DM you, whatever. There's something that happens. And then there's a gap. And if you're like this, something happens, your reaction. That's not good. You're not going far in life if that's what it is. But if it's like this, it hits a buffer, and then the gap is wider. And what I noticed is that in the last 2 years, my gap between something that would be, I don't know, emotional, where I'd have an outburst, or I'd put up a post, or I'd share it on my stories, has gotten so large. It's gotten so big. It's crazy, because I'll give you an example. I was down in Florida, and my mom, so I planned the whole trip. And I really wanted to plan it honestly for myself, and I knew that she would actually enjoy it. And what I noticed is that so I went down Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday and Tuesday, she said the same thing twice. And she said that you can handle situations better than I've seen you handle in the past. And I actually noticed that as well, is that we would run into a situation and it was raining, it was pouring, we got stuck in an airboat in the Everglades, literally in the middle of the Everglades. the driver, we're on the land, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, there's alligators, there's very large snakes, and that's all I care about. I know there's no pumas or anything else, but it's amazing because I just said, okay, what do? Do we just call in? I'm not getting out, to be honest. I'm not putting my feet in this because I'm not watching a snake bite my leg and wrap me and coil me and bring me under, especially in front of my mom. But it was amazing how in the past I remained calm. Even driving, I drove, everything. And what I noticed is that it was time to finally come out and just say, you're meant for more, okay? You know, David Goggins talks about, you know, you're at the end of your life and God, creator, whatever I don't care what you call it, just says, this is who you could have been. This is good father, good spouse, in shape, lived longer, very wealthy, big impact, whatever it is. And that's regret. And if you haven't read The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, it is probably one of the most emotional books. Since that book, I literally look around and I see someone old, and the first thing in my mind is, what are they thinking? Like, what do they want to do that they can't do maybe, you know? Because once you hit an age, and I've seen it. I saw it with my father. He passed away literally in a month. My grandma, it took longer. I never met my grandfathers. And it's not like woo-woo, me, but I noticed there's a stage that you reach where you really can't do much. And a walk around the block is a big deal. You know, a phone call once a week from your kids is a big deal, okay? At that point, you're looking back at your life. I posted it on my stories, and I said, you're leasing life. It's a very, I think it's more of an Eastern philosophy. I don't know if it's Buddhism, but it would be definitely an Eastern philosophy, is that everything is temporary. The clothes that I'm wearing, the office that I have, the camera that I have, this live stream is temporary. My body is even temporary. In other words, it changes. I think it's every 3 months. Everything completely changes. So literally, when someone says, I'll give you 2 points after this, is that you are what you eat. You eat shit. That's your body. That's becoming your cells. That's becoming your eyes, your hair, your skin, your teeth, and things like that. And what I noticed is that when I was drinking for the last 2 years, it literally became my body. It became my body. It was dry, it was sore, it was cracking, it was bad. And I was like, dude, you're not feeding your body. You're not being who the best version of yourself is. That's number one. Number two is, this girl came out with something that I saw on Instagram, I think it was 2 days ago, and she said something about, you shouldn't really put up what people are eating. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, there's this camp that I'm completely against, which is making people feel good, okay? Do you really want to enter the doctor's office and he says, listen, I could tell you the truth or I can make you feel better. Everyone says, I want the truth. And then you get the truth and then you're triggered, or you get the truth and you say, you know what, I don't feel good, I'm gonna reject it. So throughout the entire next, probably, and the reason I went live today is because my coach said, you got to put at least one post a week on Instagram, one of these personal and one at BPI. And I started doing it a little bit more often. Personal, this is my first one. BPI, I haven't filmed it. But this is what he said. He said, what are you gonna do? Who are you gonna tell? And what's your accountability if you don't do it? So my first accountability is that I had to record a video that goes to 10,000 members within the coaching organization. And these people a lot of them are making 10, 15, 20 million dollars. And I want their referrals for New York City real estate, okay? And I had to record a video, send it to him, and he has it. So if I don't do this, he's gonna post it to the group, the Facebook group of these 10,000 members, and it literally says, call me a candy ass. I didn't do what my coach wanted me to do. I didn't post to social media. It's the easiest thing I could have done, and I didn't do it. Make fun of me, blah, blah, blah. And I went on for 45 seconds, and he has the video. If I don't do it, he posts the video. If I don't do it again, it's monetary. And I have to go to him today and give him what the monetary is, okay? It's something, maybe an organization I don't like, or maybe it's an amount I don't like. This is what I'm getting at, is this, say, 2 years is everything for a lot of people. And the reason being is that the world is going to be totally different, okay? You're really going to have to get your body, first of all, it's the foundation. It is the foundation of your life. You must get your body in order, okay? I don't give a shit what anyone says. I don't care what Grant says. I don't care what Tony says. I don't care what anyone says. Your health must be your priority. It must be. And the reason being is that you can't do anything else. You can't do anything else. You can't have energy for your spouse, your kids, your wife. You can't live extended. You're going to be at the doctor's office. It's either, they're suffering either way. This is definitely Buddhism. You suffer by going to the gym, or you suffer because you didn't go to the gym and now you're 55. Come to New York City, walk around New York City. Go to the subway. You'll see a lot of people that are in their 50s compounding bad nutrition, bad athleticism, or not going to the gym, bad watching TV, social media, whatever the case is. It will catch up to you. And these next 2 years, you know, in New York City, we're out of COVID, but I can tell you right now is that where I want to go in the next couple of years, I'll tell you my plan, because the first thing is, like my coach said, is what do you want, who are you going to tell, and what's your accountability? So what do you want? So the next couple of years is going to be, I want to bring on an agent. He's going to take care of my business. Then I want to bring on an assistant. I've also been dealing with Salesforce, which is a CRM. It's very expensive. I got screwed over by 3 people, but I said, you know what? Thank God. And the reason being is that the 4th person I brought on, and I gave them 5 figures of money. The first 3 people, I gave them 5 figures of money, and they did nothing. And I could either dwell on it or I could move on. And guess what? The 4th person who I just brought on, hopefully they're good. They have been, you know, saying they are good. But if you guys have, guess who's back? Chris L. Great to see you. Mike Tyson, Chris L. Lost their millions. Just look up Curt Schilling, $500 million. Mike Tyson, $100 million. Okay? It's here. The first part you must get right is your health. It's the foundation for everything. Then the second part must be your money. It must be your money. Okay? I'm not saying obsess about your money. I'm not saying root of all evil. It's not. It's the lust of money. Okay? I got a text message from a buddy of mine. Actually, it was a group chat, and it's clearly passively aggressively against me. And he said something about, if you're chasing success, I feel bad for those people. I feel bad for them. And he went on this diatribe, this paragraph about it. And he's a really good friend of mine. I've known him since I was born, literally one. My parents were friends. And I went back to him. I took the screenshot, I put it on Instagram, and I explained why I want success. I want success for the freedom it gives me, for the ability to travel first class, private, the ability to do VIP tours in the Everglades instead of with a group, to be with someone in the Miami Zoo, with us, who takes us around in a golf cart and tours the entire zoo in 2 hours instead of walking. That's freedom. That's freedom. Okay? So is work going to be at the center of it? No. But I actually like work. Okay? I enjoy it. I like the game. I like the chase. So I was watching something today by Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson started this website called Optimize.me. Highly, highly recommend it. Okay? I think it's, I don't know what it is, but I signed up for the whole program. Okay? I think it was $1,000 a year ago, and I have unlimited access. He's coming out with an app, blah, 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 blah. I'm obsessed with the guy. And he's literally living at the highest potential. And he said something today, and he actually said it 3 times. And he said, what do you want? Because he's doing a Q&A with a caller or a Zoom person that's on the coaching program. And these are high-fluting people, MLB players. You got Peter Diamandis, you got Cal Newport, you got all these people that, you know, big names authors. Cal Newport was Deep Work and So Good They Can't Ignore You, Digital Minimalism, A World Without Email. Those are all his books, and they're very good. And Brian Johnson said something, and he said, what do you want? What do you want? Seriously, what do you want? And that's I think the first problem is that a lot of people don't even know what they want. Like, they don't even know what they want in a spouse. You know, last year I spelled it out and I said, I'm 36. I got to get my shit together to make sure that at 41, 42, that I have enough money to have kids, okay? I got to find a spouse, okay? You know, that's priority. But it's, okay, what do you want in your spouse? You know, do you want her to work? Do you not want her to work? Religion, not religion. What do you want her priorities to be? Good family, not good family. Live in the city, not live in the city. You know, what kind of work? All these things is that you have to know what you want. I want to be in a relationship. What kind? Short-term, long-term, casual, leading to marriage? Because those are all 4 different ways to actually go down a different route, okay? So that's number 1, is what do you want? And number 2 is something that I actually started to really piece together the last 2 years when I was in the depths of my soul in the forest, and it was deep and dark, okay? It was real dark, okay? And I actually didn't think there was a light out there, okay? So it's kind of the rebirth, as Joseph Campbell talks about in A Hero's Journey. But Brian Johnson brought it up right after that, and he said most people don't know themselves. And that's what I actually found out the last year, is that I've really got to know myself. I know the route that compounds to something bad, like drinking too much. I know the route that it compounds where I don't exercise, or I don't go to work, or I don't prospect. And I even know the route of that I have to remove myself literally from almost everything, okay? And I can only focus on 3 things, okay? There's a great book that it's in my Kindle, and it was just brought up again today, and it's called Range. And it's essentially talking about is that, I haven't read it, so I can't give you the synopsis, but what the person said today is that you really have to know a big width to know what you want to go deep on, okay? So for me is that I can't go on social media and scroll through it, okay? I can't. I know myself. I've been without a TV for over 10 years. I haven't subscribed to any journals, and by journals I mean Wall Street Journal and things like that. And the reason being is that I know myself. I cannot do that, okay? It's kind of like you buy the cookies. In other words, the decision's made at the store. If you buy the cookies, it's in your house, you're gonna eat it. So it's really not the willpower of eating it while it's in your house. The willpower starts at the store. You gotta know yourself. You gotta skip it. And I gotta be honest, is that my content, if COVID did not happen to me as bad as it did with everything that happened drinking-wise, I don't think I would be anywhere near where I am right now, because I would have been on the same direction. It kind of, you know, it really messed up a lot of people. I'm looking at the statistics. I think it's 25% more deaths of alcoholism and 50% more deaths from meth. I think it's meth. It was the first time last year that it reached over 100,000 deaths, okay? Kind of a big statistic we should be talking about, but let's just go into not talking about it. But I'll dig into a little further on the media and the expectations of you by the media, which is to shut up, stay in your lane, eat what you want, consume all the media, consume all of Netflix, and don't ask questions, and don't make a lot of money, and don't get out of line, and make sure that you are afraid and scared will lead you, okay? And that's the biggest thing. That's the thing that pisses me off, to be honest. That really brought me out of it is I'm not doing it really for myself, is that I looked around, I talked to a lot of people, and I just said, what's going on mainstream-wise, when it comes to media or social media or anything else, it's not good. And people ask me all the time, about, say, maybe not current events, but they'll send me something. And back in the day, I would actually post it. But this is the time right now, is that the hero's journey is that you go in, the belly of the beast, and at the end, you got to come out and you got to talk about it to the community. In other words, you got to teach someone else. And I'm nowhere near the guide. Okay, I'm not saying that. But I'm telling you right now is that in the darkest of depths, you understand yourself a little bit more, unfortunately, but you got to go through it. And a lot of people don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want to be uncomfortable. The smallest thing makes them uncomfortable. When in fact, as Jordan Peterson talks about, is that you got to lean into it slowly, the smallest thing. You're scared of snakes? Look at it through a cage, far away. Then you walk closer. Then the next day, a little bit closer. And soon enough, after 2 months, you're able to hold it. My mom was down in Florida. She hated snakes. She doesn't like snakes. And she held it because I held it first. And it wasn't like that leadership. But that's the uncomfortableness that we have to lead into. And we need, this is the biggest thing, is that we need people who are living a good, optimized life. There's too much shit going on unhealthy and media and negativity and complaining and bickering and Twitter warriors and all this, is that you gotta have someone that, like you, who sees this and says, you know what? I'm gonna stay in my lane for a couple of years, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'll probably post every once in a while, but to be honest, when someone says something, or when someone sends something that's, aggravating or whatever the case is, I'm not gonna post about it anymore. I'm just gonna be like, all right. And the reason being is that I can't put energy on that, okay? I'm still coming out of this, 2-year hiatus. Not that, number one. And number two is, I want to take the approach of not something that is either relevant, people have an opinion on, or things like that. I want to come from the approach of asking questions, okay? From the approach of what logically makes sense here, okay? Because that's really going to pull people away from, say, something they already have an opinion about, okay? We saw the emotions this last 2 years. Logic, when it comes to moving, when it comes to relationships, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. Relationships, being solo, being lonely. Loneliness kills at a 30% higher rate than obesity. Because when you're lonely, it's here. And this breaks down your body than any food. You can have the happiest person. You hear it all the time. The happiest person, they live to 90 and they're overweight because they're happy and engaging and things like that. But someone who is destructive in their mind, just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. So I hope all is well. If you guys have any questions, as I said, the first step, you have to get your health. Nothing else matters until you get your health right. You got to start with, there's a lot of parts with it, sleep, which this is an Oura Ring, tracks your sleep. How much water are you drinking? What's the food? I've looked at what I was eating, and I kind of needed to go on a 1 meal a day fast. Tonight, I'm going out with the boys. I'm having something different. I planned that 2 months ago, and I'm one not to say no once I've said yes. It's keeping your integrity. You said you're gonna do it, you do it. So my integrity, and I learned that from I forgot the name of it. It was a weekend-long thing, and they talk about integrity, and they talk about the world has no meaning, but you make the meaning, and it's only through action you make the meaning. It's deep. But anyway, if you guys have any questions, leave in the comments below. I'm also gonna just go over a lot of these books. I have been taking in a lot of books, number one. And number two is I'm going to do probably long-form podcasts on topics that are very relevant, but also someone that's actually doing it. What I noticed also in the market is there's a lot of people selling things, and they haven't done it, okay? I was listening to Jay Abraham. Nothing against Jay Abraham. But Jay Abraham then started talking about a couple people during the podcast. And I like Jay Abraham. He has great ideas. But he started talking about it, and I said, how many people actually built a business? How many people actually, are in great shape. How many people are still racing? There's a huge void in the marketplace right now. And also, I'm going to keep on saying it, is that you must be the person. You must be the person, okay? You must be you want someone to get into shape, you got to get into shape. You want someone to save money, you got to save money. I tried it with my father when I first went to my first Tony Robbins event in 2009. I came back and I was like, we got to do this, we got to do that. And they just said, great. I spent $500 that I didn't have on all these CDs and DVDs, and they didn't read any of it or listen to any of it or watch any of it. And then over the 5 years after that, I started understanding, oh, maybe not everything I was told when I was younger is correct. Like milk from a cow, probably not good. I didn't know that. I was told by my grandma, God bless her heart. And by the way, the milk at that time was probably a little bit different, okay? It's not the milk today. With the cows and everything else. She also grew up in rural area and came from Ireland and things like that. But over the 5 years after that Tony Robbins event, I get a call from my father, hey, your mom and I were going down to Long Beach, which is a beach on Long Island, and they're doing the boardwalk. Out of anything, that warmed my heart the most. And the reason being is that you must be the practitioner. I can't be posting about negativity. Yes. Am I going to? Yes, probably, of course. Just happens. But have only about 3 things you really focus on in the next 2 years. I'm telling you right now, the next 2 years are vital for your life. There's a huge gap in the marketplace. A lot of people retired. A lot of people left industries that you're in. There's people that don't know who to work with when it comes to videography, creatives, real estate, whatever you're in. I noticed it in real estate in New York City. A lot of people moved to Florida that were older in real estate, that were on Fifth Avenue, Central Park West, Central Park South. There's a big void. So I can't wait to take it apart. And I know I just said I'm going to leave after this. This is the last thing I'll say, is my coach told me a number. I'll just give you the number. I don't really care. He told me, he goes, on my coaching call right before I went to Florida, he said, I want you to make $1 million this year. My numbers the previous 6 years, right? Where were we coming up with this number? And I didn't actually say it at the time because it was it's kind of like someone saying that's 300 pounds. I wanted to be at 180. That's what it was to me, okay? But what it actually did was planted a seed. And the seed was planted where I started to do the math and I said, well, if I sell this amount of homes and the average sales price is this and the average commission is this, it's only about just over $3 million in homes sold a month in New York City, which is nothing, okay? But the seed was planted. I'm not gonna do it this year, okay? But we talked about it and he came up with a plan and he said, you're gonna need accountability. What is it? And what is the plan? Those are the 3 things. So I know in the future I'm gonna be coming up with some kind of accountability system. And I'm super stoked for it. It's gonna be cheap. I don't know. I'm not gonna say a price, but this is like 5-6 years out, maybe 10 years out. But I noticed that accountability is really the only thing, is that keeping accountability is anything. On top of that is the Roger Bannister story is exactly what I just said. Someone runs a 5-minute mile, 4-minute mile, whatever it was, 4-minute mile, 5-minute mile, I don't know. 5-minute mile. And yeah, because going under 4 hours is the marathon. Yeah. And that's the moment where someone plants a seed and it says, why don't you get into ridiculous shape? Why don't you call yourself an athlete? That's what I say. I met this girl, she's actually next door, and we were in the elevator and she said, oh, you eat healthy. And I said, I do. I actually am an athlete. I do triathlons. And when you take that on as your identity, you start living into that. You're not, this is James Clear, Habits. Just read that book. But you can't just make one sentence and say, I'm a writer. But if you write Monday through Friday, you're now a writer. You edit videos, you're now a videographer. And that's essentially the beginning of I'm a gym goer. Ed Millett said it on his podcast this week. He said, He was interviewing Charles Duhigg, which is The Power of Habit. And he said in there is Ed Mylett never thought of himself until the conversation that he had with Charles Duhigg that he was a gym goer. He just said, I just do it. And it's funny because once you continuously do it, you're a gym goer, or you're in shape, or you're an athlete. And that was actually one of the biggest thermometers that I had to get over when I started doing triathlons, is that I had a baseline of my health, which was just be in good enough. That's really what it was. If you look at any photo up until about 2017, I was good enough. Like, I wasn't fat, but I wasn't skinny. I wasn't in shape. I didn't have muscles. I didn't have really a six-pack or anything. I couldn't really lift. It was just, yeah. And then getting over that, it's also with money, or getting into a relationship with someone that's maybe out of your league, which is nonsense, or making more money and then you spend it to get down to the level that you're used to. Yeah, it's real. So planting the seed that's what I want to do. Plant some seeds. All right. So if you guys have any questions, leave it in here. Super stoked that I went 35 minutes. Obviously the video quality is a little bit better than it was. And it's going to be a fun next couple of weeks and months and everything else. So look forward to bringing it on. If you guys have any questions, shoot me Instagram or whatnot. I'm barely on YouTube. I just watch my subscriptions and videos, and it's just good to be back, man. It's good to be back. And I'll leave you with this, is that, and I know I said that a couple of times, and that's my cue to leave, but my coach said that, because I told him the story, is that my first 3 or 4 coaching calls, I was still drinking. And this was about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And we ended, he has to record all the calls, and it goes to the main company, which is Tom Ferry, and that's the main company of the coaching call. And he stopped it. I won't go into everything because obviously this is public, but he stopped the recording and he got vulnerable. And it really sunk in my mind, is that the people that you think, and I know it's obvious, okay, but we still look at people and we put them on this pedestal, and we don't think that they have issues or problems, or there's not crap going on behind the scenes. And I think that's also why I really wanted to get back out there, not only to say that, yes, Charles, personal development, eating well, all this other jazz, went through a lot of crap, number one. But number two is that this facade of just Instagram is nonsense. It's nonsense. Like, I know a lot of friends that, they'll post on Valentine's Day, I love my wife, I love this, and I'm in a great relationship. And you're talking with the guy and they're not. It's nonsense. I actually do want to marry someone that she's right here and we actually talk about it and we go deep into it, because I don't know. It's a lot of facade. There's a lot of masks out there, like I was. Only posted when there was actual success, because I felt like a fraud. It's a good word. I felt like a fraud when I was not, but I would post. But anyway, to next week. Talk to you guys soon. It's great to be back.